Native plants, and native wildflowers in particular, are essential to Florida's ecological health, economy, and natural beauty. They provide diversity to our landscapes and opportunities for ecotourism and recreation. They play a vital role in water quality, they help prevent erosion, and they sequester carbon. They are a key component in our many ecosystems and are relied upon by pollinators and wildlife for food and habitat. Native plants have evolved in Florida's unique soil and climate conditions, so they're better suited than non-native species to survive here and to survive without the aid of excessive water and chemicals such as fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides that many of those common non-native landscape plants require. Our native plants have also evolved alongside our native pollinators and wildlife, so they are essential to providing the food, habitat, and other resources that our wildlife need. Native plants are the foundation of a functional ecosystem. Native flowering plants provide nectar and pollen for our butterflies, bees, wasps, and other insects, and they attract the birds and other wildlife that rely on insects as their main food source. They are also larval hosts for many butterflies and moths. Native plants provide fruit and seed as food for wildlife, and their foliage provides cover and nesting materials. Their stems and bark also offer shelter to insects and small wildlife. By planting natives, homeowners get the benefit of a low-maintenance yard with a unique style. But more importantly, they get the benefit of knowing that they are helping our pollinators and wildlife by creating habitat in their own front and backyards, and they get to experience the life and beauty that those native plants bring in. Lawns are not natural, at least not here in the U.S. or Florida. They were a common component in Europe, especially England and France, and particularly among wealthy landowners and in common areas. When Europeans came over to settle America, they brought that aesthetic with them. But lawns here are ecological wastelands. They offer no resources for wildlife but cause us a lot of heartache. They require excessive and expensive watering and often need fertilizers, pesticides, and other chemicals to keep them green and healthy. Water is precious here in Florida. The Natural Resources Defense Council and other predictors indicate that Florida has a high risk of experiencing a severe water shortage within the next 30 years. Currently in Florida, about 64% of residential water is used on lawns, with an increase of up to 88% in drier months. We should be very careful with how we are using our water. Nurturing our lawns should not be prioritized over nurturing our future. And all of those chemicals that we're using to keep that lawn green are running off into our waterways, contaminating them and contributing to algae blooms and other issues. There are many alternatives to that traditional lawn. You can replace it with native ground covers if you still want that low green aesthetic, or you can replace it with a variety of native plants and turn your landscape into a living ecosystem. And the beauty of these alternatives is that they won't require all that water, all those chemicals, and all that time spent mowing, edging, and manicuring that the lawn requires. There are many native alternative ground covers. Frog fruit is an easy-to-establish plant. It's evergreen, it can bloom year-round, and it spreads by underground runners, so it fills in to create a dense but soft ground cover that you can walk on. You can even mow it if needed, and it rebounds nicely. It's a good nectar source for small pollinators and is a larval host for the white peacock, Phaon crescent, and common buckeye butterflies. Sunshine mimosa is another beautiful ground cover. It has feather-like foliage and flowers that look like little pink pom-poms. It's also easy to establish. It spreads quickly and profusely, and it too tolerates mowing. If it goes where you don't want it to go, you can simply clip it or divide it. The flowers are particularly attractive to bees, and it's a host plant for the little sulfur butterfly. There are two big misconceptions when it comes to native plant landscapes. One is that they're messy. It's a misconception that a native plant landscape must be wild or untamed. This is a common response from people who are used to that typical manicured, ornamental, non-native landscape. Many of our native plants have ornamental qualities. They have beautiful flowers, colorful foliage and fruits, and interesting shapes and forms, all of which can provide year-round beauty. Native shrubs can be pruned to form hedges or buffers just like our non-native shrubs can. And many of our native grasses are showy when in bloom and can be just as decorative or ornamental as non-native grasses. The other misconception is that a native plant landscape is a no-maintenance landscape. This is problematic because when people add natives and then assume they don't have to do anything, the landscape starts to look bad and the plants perish. We often hear, "I tried native plants, but they didn't work. They didn't survive." Yes, native plants require far less water and should require no chemicals, but they still need to be cared for, especially in those first few weeks and months when they're getting established. A native plant landscape is a low-maintenance landscape, not a no-maintenance landscape. There are a few ways to get rid of a traditional lawn. It really depends on the size of the area you're trying to remove. In the summer months, you can solarize the planting area. This involves covering the area with plastic sheeting and allowing the summer sun to heat it for 6 to 8 weeks. If done correctly and at the right time, this can be the most effective way to kill off the grass. Another way to get rid of your lawn is to use sheet mulching. This is effective if you're putting actual plants in the ground as opposed to seeds. It involves covering the planting area with a layer of cardboard and mulch, and then cutting holes into the cardboard and planting your plants in the holes. Another way is to use a sharp, square-head shovel to simply scrape off the top layer of grass. With this method, you'll also have to deal with disposing of what you scrape off. The best way to get started with native plants is to start small. Carve out a spot on your current landscape and start planting. Just be sure to get plants that are suited for your landscape's conditions. Or create a pollinator pot with native plants in a container for your patio. To find the right plants for your landscape or for a container, visit our website at www.flawildflowers.org. We have tons of resources to help anyone get started. The most important thing to keep in mind when switching to a native landscape is first learn your landscape. Pay attention to the site conditions, especially sun exposure and soil moisture, as this will be key to selecting the right plants for your landscape. Start small. Even if your goal is to replace your entire landscape with natives, breaking it up into smaller sections will help with the workload and cost, and it will allow time for you to see how the plants respond. You'll learn what works and what doesn't before you invest the time, money, and energy into something that maybe isn't the best choice. Don't be afraid to experiment. Pick plants that you like and see how they do, and get to know the native plants that naturally occur in your area. When you make the switch to a native landscape, sometimes your neighbors just won't get it. So what do? Talk to them. Education is so important. Tell them what you're doing and why it matters, but keep it simple. If you overcomplicate the message, you'll lose them. Show them, too, that you're not just letting your landscape go. Add features like paths and low fencing so they know there's an intention to your process. You can even add a sign that says native plant habitat or pollinators at work. You can support the Florida Wildflower Foundation's efforts by becoming a member, making a donation, or purchasing the state wildflower license plate, all of which is easy to do from our website, www.flawildflowers.org. If you're interested in roadsides, get involved at the county level. If you live in a county with a resolution, you can be a wildflower watcher. Pay attention to the roadsides, particularly in rural areas. If you see roadsides in your county where wildflowers thrive, notify your county representatives, your local roadside maintenance department, or if you're in the Panhandle or North Florida, you can notify us to ensure the maintenance regimen is appropriate. If your county does not have a resolution, we have a step-by-step guide on our website to help you get one passed in your county. Contact us and we'll help get you started. Beyond roadsides, the easiest thing a person can do is create habitat in their own landscapes. You can create an urban oasis for wildlife by planting native wildflowers, grasses, vines, shrubs, and trees in your yard. Be intentional. Choose plants that provide a diversity of resources throughout the year. Host plants, nectar, seeds, fruit, dense foliage, and nesting material. Our website has tons of resources to help get you started. Even if you don't have acres of land, you can still provide habitat. Plant a container garden. Put pollinator pots on your patio. Every little bit helps.